Well, I'm very happy to be here tonight. But I just have to tell you, it's very hard to squeeze 1,200 years into 8 minutes. My story starts in 824 AD, in 824 AD, in a town in Norway where a man named Agar lived. And Agar somehow had a number of descendants who, in 1000, ended up in York, what is now England, because it was founded by the Vikings. Now the Vikings were Norsemen, but they were the Norsemen who raped and pillaged and stole land along all the coasts of Western Europe. So I can't claim to be a Viking as much as, no, I don't want to be a Viking. Well, we're in 1000. In 1234, King Edward I made a land grant to the descendants of Agar, and their last name was Conn, C-O-N-N. And they were living there for I don't know how many years, and they turned up again with a new name. No, they turned up again in Lancaster, and after William the Conqueror had come in, a lot of the names were changed, and the letters of the alphabet and the way people spoke. But the Cohen family was in Lancaster, and when they had the deeded land, they moved to the land, and on that land was a village called Kenyon. And Adam Coonan became Adam de Kenyon, D-E. And Adam, very prosperous. Obviously, it was a gift from the king. He had a lot of land, and as was a tradition, the land went to the eldest son. So in 1320, his descendants, a man named Adam de Kenyon, knew that there was going to be a problem because he had 2 living sons, and he felt that each one deserved to have something. So he made a real attempt to buy as much land as he could, so that on his deathbed and when the will was read, he was able to give equal parts to his son Adam and to his son Thomas Kenyon. Well, I'm going to go fast forward to 1850. 1850. James Kenyon, my great-great-grandfather, was living on that land. But it had been played out, there had been drought, there had been parasites, and he just couldn't make a go of it, and he wanted to go to Australia. But he had a problem. His eldest son, whose name was Henry, was born blind, and he couldn't see. And the family was tortured by the fact that if they took him to Australia, he would never make it. But they couldn't leave him behind, and they just didn't know what to do. So they went to their parish priest, who was called Dr. Michael, and explained their dilemma. And Dr. Michael knew my great-great-grandfather as being a very bright boy. Even though he was blind, he could do all sorts of things, and that he had a tremendous sense of smell. If a person walked in a room, he could smell them and know their name. It was remarkable, or not. But the kid was bright and loving, and Father Michael sent a letter to Father William, who was a priest in Liverpool, where there would be a bigger chance to find something that young Henry might be able to do. And he came across a parishioner named Robert Hooker. Mr. Hooker owned a tobacco importing company. And there was a need of men to come in who could blend tobaccos. And you had to blend them through scent. And it made no difference if you could see them or not. And he wrote back to his friend, Father Michael, and said, this might be something. Do you want me to speak to Mr. Hooker? He said, absolutely, please do. So he did, and Mr. Hooker came up to the house, met Henry, who could walk through his own house without stumbling, looking, and he brought a pile of tobacco leaves with him and scattered them on the table and said, put these in a pile the way each one smells. And the little boy did it. Wow. So they had a talk with the father. The father was heartbroken. The mother was hysterical. But they knew that this was the only chance for their little boy. So they made a contract that they would have Henry become a ward of the Hookers. And with that, it was signed, and there was an agreement that whatever money he earned in his time before he was 18, he would be paid for. He would be paid for. Well, he moved to Liverpool. They treated him with love and affection. This was not a Dixonian experience. And when he was 18, he was given the money that he had earned, and Mr. Hooker set up a trust fund for him because he was blind and he thought he may need it. Well, when he was confirmed, he was in a confirmation class with a young girl named Jane, and they fell in love. And her parents were not happy with her falling in love with a blind man. But one afternoon, someone came into the store where the tobacco was sold, and my grandfather was there. And my grandfather said, "May I help you?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "I bought this tobacco here, and I want to know who made it." And my grandfather's great-grandfather smelled it, and he said, "Well, I made it." And he said, "Young man, if you ever get to St. Louis, you look me up, and I'll put you in business." And the kid, okay. And then he remembered Mark Twain, who he loved, and the Mississippi in St. Louis, and he thought, "Oh my God, this is going to be awesome." He couldn't see. I couldn't see. Right after his 18th birthday, he and Jane left out a big part, and I supported him. His best friend from the time he was 12 until the time he left was a boy and then a man named Jack, who would tie a string on his finger, and they would walk like this, and he would know to go this way or to go this way. And it turned out that they decided, well, we're going to get married. Father Michael said he would marry them even though the family objected. They got married. The three of them, the priest, Jane, and Henry, walked to a White Star Line and sailed for America. And they never realized that he was blind. They went through customs. He wore glasses, but they didn't make any difference if he wore them or not. But they, took the thing away. They got on a train, went to St. Louis. When they got to St. Louis, the man who said, "Look me up whenever you get out to St. Louis," happened to be August Bush, the owner of Anheuser-Busch Theater. And when they walked in the office, they say, Jane could hear him say, "I don't know any blind boy from Liverpool." But anyway, when he came out and he saw my father, he was just, my grandfather, he was just startled. And true to his word, he set him up in a shop at 12th and Olive, downtown St. Louis, that he had for 43 years. He became one of the leading citizens of St. Louis. He was the first person to bring a machine that rolled cigarettes. He paid for, with his money, he paid for Joe to come over because he needed Joe, and he paid for one of the Hooker youngest daughters, Sarah, and her husband to come over. And When the World's Fair came to St. Louis in 1909 and the Olympics came in 1909, my grandfather played a major part in that happening. He had 4 sons. And this is the wrap-up. He had 4 sons. My grandfather, Thomas Mark Kenyon. My father, Thomas L. Kenyon Jr., and yours truly. Now, Karen and I, we have not had children. So I am the last Kenyon that goes back to 1824 with Agar in Norway.